Hello, and welcome to Kinks and Beats Daily. I am your host, Tony Fry, and this is episode 192. We are cruising closer to 200 here. Even with the breaks that we've taken throughout the year, it's hard to believe we are almost to 200 episodes. Today, we are listening to a song called Giving by Dave Davies. It was released January 30th, 2007 on the album Fractured Minds. And this album was recorded following Dave's stroke, which we've talked about in previous episodes. And that stroke left it real difficult or near impossible for him to sing or play guitar. So in that respect, it's incredible how well put together this track is. And in general, overall, the album is a very well put together album, and there's a lot of good stuff on it. But that said, I find the mix on this track almost unlistenable. Dave's double-tracked vocals are way too loud in the mix. And the guitar work, which is pretty driving, slow rock groove, is nearly drowned out. You don't really get the impression that the instrumental track and the vocal track are connected. And that's hard to do. I struggle with that when I'm recording music. I struggle to make the vocals sound like, because I'm doing it all on my own. I'm almost always the only person on my recordings, with the exception of sometimes I have a drummer put down some drum work for me. So it's all overdubs, and it's very difficult sometimes to mix the vocals in a way that they're heard, but that they also feel like they're a part of the song, because it's very easy to have the vocals sitting on top. And a lot of people will tell you, some sound guys I've worked with have always said the vocals should be 2 times louder than the rest of the music, which I think maybe for live performance, although I don't agree with it there, but I can understand where you're coming from with it on a live performance. But on a record, that rule does not need to apply. Because as long as you can hear the words, you can mix the vocals as another instrument. Right? So you would blend it. You want to try to blend the recording so that the vocals are more present in the mix, because that's your focal point, but not drowning out the guitars and stuff, or the drums or the bass or whatever it is. And on this track, the vocals, I think, are just way too up front. It's pretty obvious that this album is supposed to have like a homemade feel. A lot of the guitars sound like they're going direct into the board. The bass mix is a little bit thin. It doesn't sound like the bass had been, really, bumped up to kind of fill the whole mix. There's electric drum set on it. Things like that makes it feel like it's a homemade thing. And Davis said, you just go and pull whatever sound effects or whatever that he could find laying around the studio. But you can make a lo-fi demo-like track that is still mixed with a proper commercial release. Listen to Dr. Dog, who, their entire career is lo-fi demo-like recordings, but they still are balanced and mixed. Even if they sound like they were recorded in a tin can, they're still balanced within each other. Does that make sense? This particular track does not feel like it's balanced with itself. A couple of days ago, we talked about Dave's higher register when we were talking about the song When You Were a Child. And this is an example of what I was talking about. When he goes into his head voice, which he does through this entire song, it gets difficult to control the tonality. And this is true of a lot of people. Head voice is tough to control. I used to judge high school musical theater productions. So we'd go in, and basically it was like the Tony Awards for high school musicals. But in order for it to be worthwhile for the kids, we'd actually have to adjudicate, and I'd fill out like a 20-page report on all these aspects that I was adjudicating, whether it was the acting or the costumes or the lighting or the sound or whatever. And so many times I would talk to the singers about their pitch control when they're in different parts of their voice. and it's tough. And I think, it's not a comment on Dave's singing ability. It's a comment on the timbre of his voice. Doesn't always work in that upper headspace. And the best sounding vocals on this track are in the background. There's a spot kind of in the middle of the track where he's doing like this mid-range counterpoint vocal lines, and they're kind of, if I remember correctly, kind of hard panned on the headphones. And his voice sounds really good there, and his voice sounds really good throughout a lot of this album where he's singing in that more comfortable range. But on this one, I think double tracking it in that range so far up in the mix, he's not really doing himself any favors on this. I don't have much to say about this track, honestly. It's not a bad one at all. There's some cool stuff happening in there. And like my biggest complaint, like I said, is just the mix. He's still playing some great guitar. But it's not one of my favorite pieces on Fractured Minds by any stretch. But give it a spin. You might like it. If you do like it, let me know. 925-494-1739. Or you can email me kinksandbeats@herohabit.com. I'd like to hear more from you guys. And of course, you can do that by reaching out, joining our Facebook group, hit me up on Twitter, whatever you want to do. There's a new Twitter account @kinksandbeats. Give us a follow there. And we're still looking for contributions. If you have a song that you've changed your mind on, that you used to hate, that you love now, that you used to love, that you hate now, I want to know what it is. What changed your mind? How did your mind change? Do that via voicemail, though, so we can listen to it on a future podcast. All right, that's all I got for today. Make sure you subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating and review, and I will talk to you guys next time. Thank you. This podcast is presented by the Hero Habit Podcast Network. Swing by HeroHabit.com today to comment on this episode and poke around our growing database of sports and pop culture news, reviews, and collectibles. HeroHabit.com. Collect your heroes.